Oh, shoot. Come on in, Marissa.
Got it. Okay.
Sorry about that. I hit the wrong button.
I'm back.
Yeah. Hey, Brad, sorry about that. I hit the wrong button.
No problem.
Yeah. Sorry, David.
Okay.
I thought I was ending the meeting for everyone in just the executive session, but apparently that button ends the entire meeting. All right.
Okay, I'm here. As darkened as usual. Okay.
We exited the executive session at 11:31 a.m. Yeah.
So
What we can do, if you don't mind, since we do have Brad.
Can I interrupt you, Chris?
Yeah, you bet.
John needs to do a administrative exit from that executive session, I believe.
oh yeah. So the Port of Coupeville is exiting its executive session, and no action was taken place during that session. And we're going to move forward on our agenda with the potential of skipping forward to 11.3. Is that what I'm thinking we're
Yes.
wanting to do, Dave,
Yes.
Chris?
That would be great. And so I've been working with Dan at Swenson Say Faget and Brad Cornwell at RMC Architects on the wharf building itself. As you know, we're in a really tight spot with the damage that was done to the roof last November 25th, November 15th, and so let me back up a little bit. It was Dan at Swenson Say Faget that suggested we get an as-built done from 2D as-built. So to kind of lay the foundation for all the work that's going to happen going forward. That also includes the seismic stabilization of the walls. And so in working with Dan, Brad was excellent with follow-up. Brad and Dan work really well together as a primary sub. And after a couple meetings with both of them, asked them to put together a scope of work for this project in the roof. Now, Brad and his team have come out already. I've met them at the wharf. They spent some time out there looking at the rafters and crawling in to that space that may or may not need repair before the roof gets replaced. And so what I've done is, I know I've sent you guys out the scope of work with both Swenson Say Faget and RMC Architects scope and costs. And I'll let Brad chime in here and kind of introduce himself quickly. Brad, if you can also let us know what other ports you've worked with. And then he'll go into the scope, the timeline, and the permits that are necessary to move this forward. And then at the meantime, I'll go ahead and share the scope of work if you guys want to reference that. So Brad, meet Commissioner Day and Commissioner Mashasek.
Hello, commissioners. Hello, Chris. Good to see you again. Nice to meet you remotely. Yeah, we're my firm. We're located up in Bellingham. We have 17 folks here at the office, and we had kind of have a long history of doing work with port agencies. We've done a lot of work over the years for the Port of Bellingham, obviously. Currently, right now, we also are doing stabilization and repair maintenance projects for the Port of Skagit at the site that they have, the former Northern State Hospital. And we're working in kind of a tandem way also alongside Janicki Industries, where their hope is to build some, light manufacturing out there for some of the products that they do. So that's a current relationship. We also have a good relationship with the Port of Anacortes. We're doing some work. Well, we've done a lot of work for them on, again, similar projects to what we're going to do for you guys. But also, we recently did also undertake a larger project of doing a proposed event center along with a combined port offices project. You know, the cycle of costs and everything is kind of put that project a little bit on the back burner right now, but we're proceeding ahead with some other work for them as well. And then also did a lot of master planning, most of the master planning work done at the Port of Everett. My business partner, Jeff McClure, did that work for that port agency. And the port's well along then, as you're aware, of advancing some of that work. So we bring a lot of background with port agencies. Also did some work out of Friday Harbor. If you remember the Downriggers restaurant when it burned here 6 or 7 years ago, we rebuilt that for them, and it's a real important piece of their economic project in terms of what they do there to support tourism, as well as kind of on the, support the marina-based functions and picking up people from the ferry. So it's done a lot of work. We also have a good relationship with Swenson St. done work, in particular, some historic work with them over the years, as that's one of their specialty areas. And Dan is an outstanding engineer, one of the most well-respected engineers in the Seattle market, and very creative and good to work with. So we're pleased to present a proposal to you for the work. We did get out last week, have an opportunity to get up into the attic space, and I do believe after getting up there that there's going to need to be you've already have obviously some stabilization measures that are up there, but there does appear to be some further compromises that probably are going to take a little bit of some bracing work up there to further reinforce that. And so Dan and I put together a proposal. You see some numbers here that Chris has pulled up on the screen. Basically, what we want to do is we've inherited the 2D scan work that is representative that Chris mentioned for the two lower, well, I'll call it 2 floors, but the lower floor areas of the building. So we have that as a template. And what we, one of our steps here to do is to do a more formalized 3D a representation of what are the structural members in the attic now that then Dan Say can use. We happen to use a program called Revit. It works just seamlessly with AutoCAD, that is kind of the older program. But 3D allows, the Revit allows a 3D modeling function, and that's what we're going to use and share with Dan Say. And then they can do the seismic work to determine, okay, if we re-engage with a new roofing material with an estimated weight, and we're able to do some internal bracing, kind of do a bit of a seismic analysis, not seismic, but a structural, proposed structural design, and then we can show and reflect a proposed, what the cladding material would look like. And so the fees that you have here are, it's scoping, it's creating that attic 3D model, letting Swenson Say do their work, come up with some recommendations that we would bring back to you and your executive. And then from there, and also giving you some sort of a cost swag in terms of what that might run. And then from there, if looks good, we would proceed to do some preliminary, and I've already reached out to the town regarding their process for permitting. And then we could undertake a few, there are 3 initial things we might want to do to make sure we don't have a scoping issue with the re-roof. I think the town will be a good partner for you. I think they're committed to that, but they also have the overlay of the EB's Landing trust area that has got this question. So we would want to verify, because the intent is, I believe, to put a metal roof on the building versus the current shake roof. And historically, almost assuredly, from the skip sheeting, we know it was cedar shingles, right, when it first got built. So we need to get buy-in on that issue to make sure that metal is going to be a viable option for you as well. So a couple of pieces that are in this scope, that's what's involved.
Yeah, and EB's has already basically signed off on the metal
Okay.
roof. We actually prefer the metal roof.
Okay.
And I did talk to Mayor Hughes,
Mhm.
excuse me, just a couple days ago. And I let her know that you're going to be swinging by, so they're ready to partner. I also mentioned the metal roof to her, as well as the people at Schwab. I think everyone is voting for a metal roof. It'd be nice to put cedar back up there, but I don't think that's realistic.
Well, so I'll walk through the couple of the things that in my conversations with both with Donna, the town planner, and then Joshua, the assistant planner, who will probably be my point of contact. I can walk through those next, but just in terms of the proposal itself, what we've given you here that's up on the screen, these are kind of, and if you, there's enough detail if you looked at Swenson's proposal, really they're kind of tackling it hourly. I tried to give you a bit more of an outline of some of the things, the tasks that we would do here. But essentially, again, we're kind of tackling it hourly. So these are kind of like maximum numbers. I think will come in well under this, in part because you've already did some good advanced work with your 2D modeling exercise down below. We didn't need to measure all of that, right? So that was a big assistance so that we can develop a model for the building. But any specific questions, I guess I'll just leave it to if anybody does have a question on the proposal itself.
Who was Josh again? Is he with?
Joshua is the assistant planner for the town. Joshua Engelbrecht is
He's
his
new.
name.
He's new. He's going to be helping Donna Keeler.
Okay.
So Brad, do you see any other difficulties from a historical perspective with the scope of work that you're talking about?
Well, I think one of the reasons that you've had problems on the building is that, and again, my understanding, and Chris was able to share some of your advanced work for the piling repair work. You know, the building is out on piles. It has a higher than average movement ratio, but it's a wood building and it moves around. But I think that's been part of your problem over the years. You obviously have done some work. It's evident from inside the building to brace that structure better than what it was originally. But there is clearly more evidence of the piles are moving the structure around a bit, and you're seeing the net effects. Aside from the fact that it's out in a pretty exposed and can be very windy condition. I'm not anticipating any. The piling work will really actually help. I did mention to Chris that a metal roof, one of the things we'll have to do is to be intentional with a roofing product choice for the panels, that to make sure that they have some capacity to move. It may want to help drive the type of metal roofing that we select, so that there is some more movement between the panels. Metal, as you know, it reacts more to heat. It's heat sensitive, so it moves, but it also is a more rigid material than dealing with either a comp product or even a cedar shingle product.
Well, and once it moves, it doesn't move back either, correct?
Right. So getting when you guys advance your work with the piling repair, that will just further help stabilize, I believe, that building out there. And I think that's been your intention all along. So those are my first reactions to that. In terms of, as long as everybody's on board locally, your local agency, I believe, ultimately has the jurisdiction to make the call on this, but they will probably share it with DHAP down in Olympia in terms of the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation. They're going to share it down there. They'll get an opinion down there, but I believe if everybody locally is in support of our intent, I'm not anticipating a problem there, but that process will take a little bit of time. So,
And just to let you know, Brad, I did talk to to Molly again and asked her if we would still have her support in allowing this to be an emergency application process, and she said yes.
Great. Great.
So, yeah, I think locally between the historic review, I think we're gonna have great partnerships locally.
Yeah, that's
I've already
great.
laid that groundwork.
There are 4 permits that this town has indicated would be part of this project. One is they call it the certificate of appropriateness. This is basically the design review, which needs to reflect, hey, we're gonna take off the comp shingles, and we're gonna make sure that we've got a solid underlayment there that's pretty bomb proof. That's actually the waterproofing material, and make sure we've got appropriate sheeting. The old skip sheeting is there, but at some point, maybe when it got the comp shingles, there was OSB that was put on there. Now, Dan may be able to utilize that as is, or he may suggest that gets replaced with plywood. I don't know. OSB has a pretty high performance rate, but I'll let him, he needs to make that recommendation. But then we would recode it and do it. But we'll need to present an image of that and an understanding of probably some sort of a graphic as to what that would look like. Give that to the town. They meet once a month, as you're probably aware, with the EB's Landing folks. And then it's a 2 to 3 week review after that. So their next meeting is coming up here in literally, I think, a week and a half. So the next meeting probably is going to be October. So it's an October meeting and then 2 to 3 weeks for approval there. They suggested that concurrent with that application for the certificate of appropriateness, you do 2 things. One is a floodplain development permit, and we're basically would be asking for an exemption because we're, not that necessarily we're out of the flood. Pardon?
No, I'm just joking.
Oh, well, I
We're
was
over water.
surprised too, we're over water, you're asking for a floodplain thing. And I said, well, shoot, do we have to get a surveyor to go ahead and shoot from some monument what the wharf elevation is? And the town was gonna get back to me, I haven't heard. But basically it's asking for an exemption, but I do have to do the application. And then beyond that there is a shoreline permit exemption application. Again, we're not doing any in-water work, we're exempt. So those 2 would be, and those are administrative decisions by the town. So those 3 things would go in, we'd get approval there, and then there is a building permit required. I have reached out to the building official to ask on how long those are taking. I haven't heard back yet. My guess is 2 to 4 weeks, but I don't know what the town's running right now.
Coupeville's pretty good, way better than the county.
Well, that's good, because up here in Bellingham, it's 4 weeks, the maximum 30-day first review. You get your review, sometimes they're even late. You get a review, you get a week or so to deal with the responses that come in a multi-page format, and then it takes them another month. So up here, it's at least like a 10-week process for a simple thing. So I like dealing with the small jurisdiction. It'll be helpful. So, but you'll have to go through that process for the building permit. And I think they're, as Chris described, I believe that they'll be very supportive. But there's those 4 things to do.
Who drives that process? Who moves that along? Do we do that or do you?
We would act as your agent. Obviously you have the relationships there. We'd be actively monitoring it. And I believe as Chris is able to reach out as best you're able, I think they'll perform for you. And with the understanding too, that, we don't want to have a whole nother winter go by without the repair. So.
Can I ask you the fiscal question about, so the figure that's quoted here, or the proposed fee, is that a not to exceed number, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This initial analysis, the modeling, the coordination with the city that ahead of a contract, frankly, I've already kind of done this. But all of that and the applications here with these first 3 permits, we've included that. What's not included is the actual formal drawings for a building permit and that application, along with whatever Dan Say needs to come up with for structural calculations and whatever, detailing drawings they need to do. That'd be a future thing once they get their head into what else do we need to do here to stabilize the building. And then, I believe you're going to probably exceed, because of your location, the scale and the materials intended. You probably are going to, you're going to need to go through a public bid process for that.
Right.
Usually that takes, in our circumstances, I'm going to say between a 6 to 8 week window by the time you allow a 3 to 4 week bid period. You host a site visit, you hopefully get a couple of bidders, more than one. And then with that in mind, you would go ahead and have the parent low bidder provide proof of insurance, do some of the paperwork things, and then get them under contract to give them a notice to proceed. So you probably got a, like I said, 6 to 8 week window there.
Would your firm be the administrative part of that as well?
We can be. I don't know. I can't remember who your port attorney is. Every agency almost has their own, I'll call it front end for what administratively they want to do. And I will follow your lead with what you've done elsewhere. We can default into using, I will say, agency or owner contracts with a general contractor. We're an AIA member. That's one form of agreement. If your attorney has a different form of agreement they want to use, we will use that, whatever it is. But we can help foster the bid process, the advertising, the hosting of the tour, and then the bids will come into Chris. They'll come in directly, and then we can help administer the contract once you have somebody.
Chris, is that your desired situation?
Yeah, it really is, David, only because, I'll climb the learning curve here, but going to a public bidding process like this is new to me.
Right.
It's relatively new to the port. And I think with having both Brad and Dan, supporting me through the process, I'll be able to climb that learning curve pretty quick. But I would really like to have their support to get this going at that stage.
So that would be in addition to the situation that we're looking at this point, correct?
Yeah.
In terms of the fees.
Yeah.
They'll have to put together a bidding packet anyways, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they would help me assemble that. I'll do a lot of the legwork as far as the posting and learning all those rules and regulations. But yeah, I would appreciate if we would take this approach and make sure we have that experience behind us.
Could you scroll down on the thing again, Chris?
These are the fees that are just broken out into detail that matches the overall fees up top, and then you get into they're just billable hours per teammate, just as our attorneys do. And then you run into the SSF, which is Swenson Safe Faget, and we're working with Dan, one of the principals. And this is his breakout of those same costs that are in the scope that Brad provided.
So I'm not exactly sure how to word this, but I would like to move that we approve this agreement for a scope of work with your firm and use the figure that you gave us as a not to exceed figure without further contemplation, I guess.
Second. So in the discussion, I mean, it's got a job number, David, RMC number P1856.
Yeah, I can't see that, so.
If I could contribute, that's my own internal.
Yeah, that's not ours.
promotional marketing number. If you have whatever project number you pick, we'll use. That's my own internal number for me to track my pre-project efforts. So
I think we need to give Chris to, approval because of the dollar amount exceeding a certain dollar amount. We just
Right.
needed to, make this an active motion discussion and then call the motion. So,
Can
Are
you
you ready
scroll
for
back up, please, Chris?
Sure. Where would you like me to go, David?
All the way to the top again, please.
This
So
is,
I did review this when you sent it to us, and I don't really have any questions other than what I've brought up. I think that we need to move forward on this at the most rapid possible rate possible. And from everything I'm aware of about your firm, we are safe in moving
Capable
forward
hands.
with you. So
I call the motion that we move forward on incurring this this work to be done.
yeah, before we do that, John, I'd just like to ask Brad, what would be your actual most realistic time frame once we sign this?
as far as this first phase, David?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's not included here, but this is, and you'll get a memo of this. This is my summary of my conversations on the permitting pathway that the town has. My guess is that you've got probably a 2-month window of some permitting to do. Unfortunately, now we can utilize that time to, if approved, we could advance then doing the permit, the actual building permit documents as well that we can turn in. But I think you got probably, 2 months of permitting. I think you then have a short window before we would be able to then submit for, and that's assuming that things don't get hung up with like your preferred metal roof, right? But and then, I'd say within another month, you get it in for permit. You probably have, unfortunately, probably about, I'd say 6 weeks in there for that. We normally, we often put projects out for bid, either one with a permit in hand, or if we're close to having a permit in hand, in terms of the duration for that, but we have the permit before the bid window. That way we, if there is anything that comes up, we can issue a bid addendum to prospective bidders. But that process, as I said, is probably 2 months. So, you still probably are, I'm thinking at the soonest of actually probably having somebody out there, you probably are February.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was thinking March, so that's.
yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, and I gave you the soonest, so, it might be March, but
Okay.
that's, I mean, to be frank, that's, I think, where you're at, just in terms of the process.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt you, John. I'm ready to vote. So
Okay, all in favor of accepting the proposed work being done by RMC Architects, say aye.
aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay,
Thank you, Brad, for attending our meeting and for informing the commissioners. Let's move forward as fast as we can.
I understood. We appreciate the opportunity to work alongside you guys. It's always, as I described before, we've done a lot of work with port agencies. You're the kinds of public agencies that get things done. and promote economic activity and are committed to that private side that's different than a lot of public agencies. So it's always refreshing to work with folks like yourself. So,
Thank you.
and it's been a pleasure to meet Chris. So
We have lots
Chris-
of things to check off, and it'd be fun to start doing that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate it. So Chris, I will be in touch. I can sign off. Ping me later today if there's something else, but I'll go ahead and we'll be in touch here and get this thing going.
Thank you, Brad. I'll sign this, scan it, and get back to you today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
Hey, so we're going to circle back to 10.3. Does that
Just
sound
for-
right, Chris?
Just for clarification's sake, that what we just did is that covered by state funds?
Yes, I believe so. No, I have to check, because when we received that 303,000, what I was told, it was not supposed to be support soft costs, so engineering. So I need to go back and I need to revisit that. So
Okay,
it's not, David, but it could be covered under the industrial development district.
yeah, okay,
It's capital improvement. So either way, it'll come out of a good bucket, but I don't think it's going to be covered under our state grant,
okay.
which, by the way, expires June of 2023. So the timing on this is very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Assuming we have a good weather fall and winter, we're in good shape then.
Yeah. And then if I could I request a health break just for a couple minutes?
Of course,
Okay.
Sure.
it's not my place to say that, but
So David, you and I can then probably continue on with 10.3 COG legislative priorities.
yes. Is there anything that you want to add to what was listed previously?
Before? Not really. I guess it seemed pretty comprehensive, what you'd created. And is current is what I'd like to see. So I think you did a good job. I mean, it's you know, maybe I'm feeling it's the best shot we have to give our input to the state legislatures, and let's see what happens.
Okay,
So do we need
well, I'd like to get Chris's input on that actually, to see if there's something else that is on his mind.
do we have the ability to share that list? When he gets back, maybe. So. Well, so let's put that on hold when he gets back. And go to 10.4, District 3 Commissioner Recruitment.
Yeah, do you have thoughts on this, John? I understand that we've put out some flyers.
Yep.
Um,
And we had somebody respond to the flyer that was seen down at the Green Bank Post Office,
right, and I also noticed that they're not at the meeting.
not at the meeting, and they were supposed to meet with me just to have a sit-down visit about what is a port commissioner this past Saturday, and they bailed on that. So they must be getting some concern. So we're still needing to have more people. There's Chris. Okay, you want to go back to 10.3 for action that we need to Chris, can you share the legislative priorities list that David had created before?
Oops. I did not include that in the packet this month. My apologies.
I'd have to go back in my. I mean, basically, John and I agreed that what was listed is what I'll propose to the county, to the COG. Unless there's something that you want to add, Chris, that,
I actually thought the list was very comprehensive. I also think it's a rolling list. I think some of
right,
that kind of rolled year to year, David. I'm seeing if I can quickly find it for us. Maybe one quick search, see if I can bring it up again. I remember from the last meeting, in my mind, I was like, I would just reprint that list. Here it is right here. Let me go ahead and put this on the screen for you. 1 second, please. There we go. Sorry for the delay.
thanks.
For the Coupeville right here. So
Yeah, I couldn't remember if the EV charging was listed or not, and I think that's actually a real possibility under the Jobs Act. If we work it right, so that'd be great.
the only one that I had a question, if you don't mind, was state and federal support for the RCO. I don't know if that's really necessary because we either fall into their grant categories or we don't, and that's what happened with the wharf. So that one could either stay or leave. I'm okay either way. The last one, research funding for transportation opportunities, I just don't know if that's realistic at this point. I know this has been talked about for a long time. So if I had to pare this list down to be very concentrated, I would probably delete points 0.4 and 6, but that's just my feedback. So it's a good list.
Well, my own feeling is if it's not there, it won't get looked at. So
Yeah,
if it is there, it might get looked at. So
sure.
And that applies to both of those things. So,
And it also aligns with point number 4 with the Port of South Whidbey, expand public transportation. So, okay.
So I make a motion that we approve the legislative items that have been presented at this meeting previously as the Port of Coupeville's legislative priorities.
second,
All in favor, say aye.
I.
Aye. Motion passes at 10.3.
So I will send that list back up to the COG, John, and because I won't be at that meeting.
Sounds good. 10.4, discussion District 3 Commissioner recruitment. While you were gone there for a minute, Chris, you kind of started that. I told brought David up to speed that the person that saw the flyer did not want to meet on that Saturday. And Dave made the observation that that person is not at this meeting. At least I can't tell that she was.
Yeah, she's actually on her anniversary. They're on a trip for 2 weeks. And so she told me that if she was available, they'll be in a different time zone. So I think they went out of country. So I didn't expect her to make the meeting, but she is still very interested. Yeah.
Okay.
Did you guys see the article that came out in the paper?
Yep.
This morning?
Yeah. So I don't know, but my feeling is that we should spend no less than 2 weeks and no more than 6 to advertise for applicants for that position. But I also feel that we should have a written statement from Commissioner Kennedy that he's vacating the position, addressed to the commissioners, because I think that's what the RCWs actually require. Before we can put someone in that place, I don't think a verbal message or an email message to our executive director constitutes his resignation.
Okay, I'll reach out to him again and have him resend that. I've already asked him once, I'll ask him again to send that out. I also want to let you know that we also put out this opportunity on our social media. So we're hitting all the free avenues to get that out there. It's not something I would post on Indeed.com. It's not a
Oh.
job. So we've got the paper. I may do something on Drew's list under help wanted, maybe just to get it out there. We've got it on both Instagram and Facebook, as well as our email, which had an amazing open rate in the first 48 hours. So
I don't know what you think, John, about an actual advertisement. I know I don't read the paper like I used to, so.
Sometimes I buy it just because the headline, I'm intrigued by a particular article. I'd like to think, word of mouth or somebody, I think, you and I would know what we don't want and what we do want. That you and I have to, sign off on, during this whole process of it not being voted by the public, that this is going to be,
Right.
You-
I mean, I would very much like to have at least 2 applicants for that position myself. Just so that,
two good applicants,
yeah,
well, at least 1 good one,
yeah.
but two applicants at least. So, so I don't know. I think we need to put some kind of a time limit on it. For us to recruit and then interview.
Decide.
If
Yeah,
we have, what is it, legally we have 90 days, Chris, to fill that position.
we have 90 days before it gets turned over to the county, but I am going to start that clock once Patrick gives his official resignation.
Right, that's,
there you go.
So I'm actually texting him right now. So
so I guess I would just ask that our executive director use all means possible to advertise the opening for a District 3 commissioner.
And
And
David, I
Yes?
think too, you and I are, can be eyes and ears, just talking to people. Do you know that we need a District 3 commissioner? Try to find out if they know whether or not where they are in the, the District 3 boundary.
oh yeah, absolutely, John. I
Meg
completely,
and I were going to the museum porch stories. And somebody was, showing all the characteristics that looked like a sharp cookie, retired lawyer. And he actually, I found out he lived in District 3, but he said his wife has found that he has a problem with raising his hand and volunteering too much. He's already owned too many nonprofits and engaged with too many things already for a retired person. So unfortunately, he, ended up being a bust. But I think you and I, we should be listening to people and seeing how they engage and what their background is, and then, find out where they live.
I completely agree. And I haven't put it on my own Facebook page, but I probably will.
yeah, that's smart. But we've got it on ours. We have it in the newsletter. So
Okay, well, do we need to, I guess at this point, there's no even real reason to put a time limit on it because we don't basically have anybody. So,
well, yeah, I think it's not, in the at the 30-day mark, if we haven't found anybody, I don't know what else to do. I've already thought about all the typical people I would ask that I've already asked in the past.
And David, I think what I, pictured it as is they're almost like a little bit of a bookmarker because of the timing with the election. There will be that position will come up to being, selected by the voters next year, but not this
Right.
year because it's too late to file. So I'm talking like, this is not a forever deal. They would, somebody sharp could be a bookmarker and be an
Right.
engaged, healthy person checking out the position between now and next year's vote. So it's not a
Yep.
forever deal. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we ready to move on to 11, new business? That sound right?
Yes.
11.1, discussion 2023 budget, IDD and comprehensive scheme timeline.
Yep. Let me go ahead and pull that up here. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So this is very similar to last year. It's only off by a day, the way the dates fall. The only addition to this that we will probably talk about at the next meeting is the process to renew, if you're going to renew, and select the amount for the 2023 IDD tax rate. That will be settled through a resolution, a separate resolution, separate from the budget. And we will include that in our public hearings leading up to the approval of the budget on November the 9th. But it's very similar. Don and I's goal is to have the first draft of the budget completed for the first meeting, and I actually want to have it done. It would be nice if we could find at least partial budget completion for the meeting on the 28th of September. That's actually our goal. And that way you guys have time to review it before the October meeting, which happens on October the,
Oh,
I'm sorry?
12th.
October the 12th. Thank you very much. So it's going to go fast. And we have our work to do. No doubt about it. Where did it go? Did I lose the screen sharing shot?
No, I'm still looking at the proposed timeline, but
But those are
I'm not-
dates
I'm
are
not-
not correct.
I'm not seeing October 12th. Where were you referencing that, David?
No, that's that we want you to have, we would like to get a preliminary budget to you, but it's probably going to have some holes in it. So you can start to review it at the September 28th meeting. And that way, when we get to the October 12th meeting, you guys will have a chance to review it. And then hopefully you guys will go through that really hard first pass. If Don and I can get most of that budget in place for the September 28th meeting, you guys will be able to do that first hard pass at the meeting in 2 months, 2 weeks, excuse me.
Which is a big if, since we have the audit at the same time.
We're being audited at the same time. That is correct.
Well, and again, I'd like to reiterate that I'm quite sure that I'm not going to be available for this second meeting in September.
Okay.
I will be in transit on that day. So as little hard business that meeting entails, especially since we only have 2 commissioners,
Agree.
that's a
Do we
hard
do-
deal. In fact, I'm not even sure we can have a meeting.
Actually, we'll not be able to have a meeting if we do not have a replacement by that point. So you are absolutely correct, David. That's a very good point.
I mean, I would do my very best to attend the meeting,
Remotely.
but I just don't think I can do it on an airplane.
You know, why don't we look at moving that meeting back until you land and you get settled? It's okay for us to change the date of the second meeting. It's not a big deal.
Back or forward? I mean, David, when are you actually leaving town?
You leave the 27th.
So Monday, the 26th, you'll be in town.
Yeah,
Well, but you're going overseas, man. So that's quite a flight and a time difference.
right. But I don't leave till mid-afternoon on the 27th, which is a Tuesday.
Would it be better to do it on Monday? Or try to do something from overseas? On the 29th and 30th?
I just can't, because of where I'm going, I don't know the possibilities of
Connectivity,
being able to hook up to the internet.
Okay.
so that we want to do a special meeting on the 26th.
So, I mean, if my question really is there hard business that needs to be accomplished in October?
You mean at the second meeting in September?
Yeah, yes, excuse me, yes.
Well, it's really about getting this draft budget in front of you. And being able to go through it line by line like we've done in the past. This budget's going to get more complicated and it's going to get bigger because of the IDD and our detail in our.
Right, but it sounds to me like there might be a difficulty in having it even for the scheduled meeting.
For the 28th,
Yes,
I think once Dawn gets the final numbers for August, because we want to populate August, but even if we don't have the final numbers for August, Dawn can come within 95% of those numbers, if not higher, because we submit those numbers to the county. So we can populate those. So, but you're right, we also have an audit going on. So it's a really tough time. On the other hand, what we could do is if we did not have a meeting on the 28th, that does allow Dawn more time because we'll have just passed the due date for the documents due to the auditor's office on the 26th. It just may be that we may need to call some special meetings earlier in October and not wait for the 12th. So
Oh,
we could do that as well.
When are you
okay.
going to be back? When are you going to be back, David?
we'll be back late on the 19th of October. So, so my suggestion would be, particularly based on what you've just said, Chris and Dawn, is that we cancel the second meeting in September. Let me connect with you guys once I get to Turkey and find out what kind of connectivity I have. And then we could schedule a special meeting if necessary prior to the 14th or prior to the 12th.
Yeah, it does need to be a special meeting. If I have 48 hours, it could just be a regular meeting. Because I'll put it out right away that the meeting on the 28th is canceled. So I think that's a good plan. And that way Dawn could also.
I mean, I really apologize for that. I think that's one of the things that concerned me about Commissioner Kennedy tendering his resignation prior to actually moving, because he could participate in that meeting and create a quorum. So,
Yeah.
Well, I did talk to him about that, and his response was he doesn't feel comfortable voting when he's leaving.
yeah, well,
So, okay, well, I see that as a great option. And Dawn, I know you have a lot on your shoulders. You carry the burden of this. What are your thoughts?
Well, whether it's a day earlier than the 12th or not, it's going to be a very tight schedule, but I will do my
It wouldn't
best.
be a day earlier. It would
best.
be like a week earlier. So as soon as David lands and gets his footing, we would come up with a meeting date, probably in the first week of October.
Okay. It'll be a very rough estimate.
Yeah. Well, here's the key, everyone, is that we have to have this budget really almost solidified. Well, we need to have the draft budget solidified on the 18th, because my newspaper ad will break on the 19th.
Yeah. It
Even though
wouldn't be
the
such
5
a
years I've been here, I've never had anyone ask me for a copy of the budget. I think once Mary Ann asked me for a copy of the budget, but that's once. But according to the rules, it has to be finished, the draft on the 18th, because the paper ad will hit on the 19th. So that's our true deadline,
Okay.
is the.
Chris, is that based on the alternate dating for budget, the budget process, or is that
Yeah, I
the,
have to follow a timeline of must be before this date and not after this date.
okay,
Which I put the RCWs down here towards the bottom. But the good thing is every year I only have to adjust it by a day or two. And even with the IDD process last year, I was able to marry the budget process with the approval process for the IDD.
right,
Both of those will operate in conjunction, as well as any updates we want to do to the comprehensive scheme. We will also need to hold public hearings on that, which is something we haven't talked about. So there are a lot of saucers being balanced here.
so if John is in agreement with that, and I mean, the truth is I'm going, so I'm going. But that would be my best, the best way that I could work this is to check in with you as soon as I'm grounded. And set in and try to set some kind of date.
And my 2 cents on this whole head scratching scheduling deal is Chris and Don, you guys did a really good job last year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And in some ways, I felt like I was just another set of eyes, making sure things were in the right place, the right numbers were in the right place. So do it again.
Yeah.
Do
My-
a good job. Make David and I look like we're not, fifth wheels.
My only issue is just trying to get everything, ready for the auditor and the budget in a timely manner. And precisely, I'd like to double check and triple check things, especially when I'm doing estimates on future payroll analyses and stuff. So there's a little bit of, I might be a little bit anxiety there for a few days trying to get it done, but
Wouldn't eliminating that September 28th meeting help with that, Dawn?
yeah. And I do plan to have as much as I can done of the audit request. I mean, they're asking some really weird things from you guys, like they're wanting contact information and business interest of board and spouses if applicable. I'm just going to give them contact information if that's okay. I don't think the other is necessary. I've already got the key staff names and positions and turnover dates that, almost completed. I just have a few questions that I already sent to Chris. And there's just some really kind of strange things that don't really have anything to do with accounting. So that I'm trying to get organized and recreate. So.
And the bottom line, what I found out since 2015, any mistakes can be corrected.
That is correct.
That is true.
You
try very hard never to make one.
Well, Don and I always take a very conservative approach to our budgeting. That's why we've never, in my 5 years, we've never had to redo the budget. When you look at the overall budget, which is what the board is looking at, we come in very close. Thankfully, I have a lot of budgeting experience, over 20 years of it, but I'm not worried about it. And if worse comes to worse, if we get halfway through our year, we have overspent, then we have to do an amended budget, which is something the port has done in the past.
Yeah, we just haven't had to.
We just haven't had
time.
We've been very accurate. I agree with Don. Our biggest focus is going to be on our labor cost model for this upcoming year. Making sure that we're very accurate and that we're looking at all positions, labor rates, and That's really going to be one of my bigger focuses.
Yeah, and really that is going to be the biggest change, other than everything else is pretty much standard, other than economic increase. You know, the yearly increases that might happen for insurance and that kind of things that we just kind of gauge. So
Yeah.
I will be concentrating mostly on forecasting payroll.
And
I'm
then
gonna
also,
do-
I've already redone the capital finance plan, gentlemen, so I'll be sending that out to you at some point. I was probably going to send it out at this next meeting, but that's okay. I've added some new projects and I took off the projects we completed. So not a big deal. It will be a part of the IDD or the comprehensive scheme plans, but I've already started working on that and I'm almost done with it. So
Do you
I'm going
appreciate-
to, I'm going to delete the September 28th meeting from my schedule, right?
Yeah, do we need to vote on that, John?
I don't think so, do we?
no, you just have to give me direction and I'll take it off.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you perceive any comprehensive plan changes, Chris?
You know, the only one that I thought about, David, was the airport. If, you know, looking at transportation, putting in something about transportation like we did with broadband, kind of an overarching, but outside of that, here's what I'd like to do. And this was from oh my gosh, his name just left my head. I'm so sorry, to help us with the comprehensive scheme. Anyways, he said, update it every year, right alongside your budget. So if anything, if we don't need to update the comprehensive scheme, I would still like to update the capital finance plan. Because we've accomplished some things. And I'd like to get that off and get new projects on. So I do see us amending the comprehensive scheme, but only to the point of the capital finance plan.
Okay,
Yeah. Okay, you guys have any other questions about the timeline and? Don,
I apologize. I certainly didn't expect there to only be 2 commissioners at this juncture.
yeah, it's not your fault, David.
So I apologize for the situation. And I appreciate everybody's willingness to work with me on it. So
Yeah, no, I'm glad
And
you're
you
going.
you may find that Turkey has better internet connectivity than Whidbey Island.
well, that may well be true. I'm going to be in a less populated part of Turkey than I was 5 years ago. So I just don't know what the situation is going to be. So I will let you know as soon as I know.
Okay, are we ready for 11.2?
Yep. Let me share my-
Executive Director Employment Contract.
Yeah, this is something that popped up. Well, it's been popping up in my head here and there, but in 2020, I had asked for an extra week and to increase my my cell phone expense because I was going to an iPad and a watch. I pretty much have every device known to man to connect to work when I'm either here or not here. And I asked for an extra week of vacation. That was the year that COVID hit. I was navigating the port through COVID. I was also navigating the $1 million line of credit. And I got to the end of the year. I really didn't hear anything. I also didn't push it. And then 2021 hit and we went right into the IDD to execute that, as well as the updated comprehensive scheme and the expansion of the team with a project manager. And when 2021 ended, and I took the pay cut appropriately to onboard health benefits for our full-time employees as well as myself, I thought about this again, and it's not in my nature to ask. Usually be frank, I've always been awarded. So at this point, what really triggered this again was Don's contract and how important it was that if Don were to leave the partnership or the port, that there was enough notice. And when I went back and looked at this contract, it was also smartly built into this. So right now, I look at this as protecting both myself and the port, but mainly the port. And so I changed the contract again for another 3 years. And I've had all the changes here. And I'm once again asking for an extra week of paid vacation, of which I enjoyed for over 20 years of my career. And that I also would add another $40 to my monthly stipend to cover my, not only my iPad and my Apple Watch, these are other ways I stay connected to work, but also my internet connection at home, because I do a lot of work at home, and to cover a portion of that. So that's what I'm asking for. I'm asking for an extra week and just an increase in my stipend. As far as my base salary, we can discuss that when the budget comes up, when the budget discussion comes up. But that's it. I've changed a couple words to be more, to be more accurate, but everything is trapped here. So my goal is to get this signed, to feel honestly appreciated and secure in this position, as well as protect the port. And I'm hoping that the board will review this and accept it and sign it.
Are you asking for that today?
Well, I asked for it back in 2020. So let me put it this way. I'm going to be very transparent and direct. If the board honestly doesn't feel that everything I've accomplished in 2 years is worth a week's vacation and a $40 a month stipend, then you're sending a very clear message. So yes, I would hope, like I did back in 2020 when the executive session exited and there was no result, I would hope that you guys would go, heck yeah. So yes,
So
Okay,
my,
but that's your choice. That's why I sent this out much earlier. And sorry to be so frank about it.
I thought your name was Chris.
What's that?
I thought your name was Chris, not Frank.
as opposed to Frank.
So I'm gonna chime in. I've been reading a lot of material about staff retention, because of, events that have occurred and how it is important to look after our staff. So I'm in favor of what you've presented, Chris. You are a critical staff person. We need to look after you. David?
Well, I basically am in concurrent. I want to make sure that what I'm reading is what we're talking about. Because what I see here is a stipend of $480 per month in addition to base salary.
It's actually, if you like, I can go back and accept changes. I just wanted you guys, like I emailed, to see exactly what I changed on this agreement. So there is complete understanding. So if you like, hold on 1 second, please.
Yeah, I'm looking at the actual corrected copy, Chris, where it has the $80, not the $480.
Got
So
it.
I think when you did actually send this out in the packet of material, David, it has what you're looking at on the screen is kind of the
It's marked,
Okay,
version.
I see. Okay,
yeah, it's marked up because I wanted you guys to know
okay.
every number that I changed.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree right now that, all the people leaving the county, all the little turmoil we had at the port is that it calls our attention that we really, really need to value our staff. The old deal that the customer is always right, which in the port's view would be, taxpayers and property owners, that they're the end all be all to how we make decisions, is not totally true anymore. What we need to value more is our people who have to take, you did this wrong, you did that wrong. Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Well, suck it up, people. you know, sometimes port people are more important than an individual voter. So I'm all in favor of looking after people and, you know, I think this is something that I think, you know, we need to do.
Well, for the
So-
purposes of further discussion, I would like to move that we accept the changes to this agreement as stipulated by our executive director, and put them into effect beginning October 1st.
And I second that motion. So any more discussion needed, David?
Well, the question that I have about 4 weeks of paid vacation it says here in the agreement that this will be approved by the president of the Board of Commissioners. And so I think that's a very important phrase in that agreement, because I wouldn't want to see all 4 of those happen at once. I wouldn't want to see them happen when there is other pressing business that needs to be dealt with, especially when there's limited staff. Those are really my concerns. And I think you can appreciate that, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. I will tell you that, and first of all, thank you both for the support. It means a lot. John, thank you. All I can say is this. I've had a career for a very long time. This is my 3rd and final career. And if you were able to look back at the decisions I make, I put the company first, and sometimes even for my health. And my 5 years here, I have never taken more than 10 straight days, including weekends. I've never taken 2 weeks off. I work them around. I don't know how I've been able to do it. I work them around our meetings, and I've missed maybe 1 or maybe 2 meetings at the most in over 5 years that I've been here. And I would just hope that through my performance only and the facts as a result of my performance, that you'll know that I'll make those good decisions. And it is true that I have not gone to the president of the board and said, hey, I'm taking time off. I typically send the email to everybody, including all my staff, but I can go back to getting approval first. I have no problem with that. I appreciate the fact that I've been trusted to run the port and to navigate it and to take your guys' direction and execute against it. So I've probably taken advantage of that, booking my vacation, knowing it's the right time, knowing it's the right timing. But I do hear your concerns, David.
Well, it is a concern, and I just, again, I want to reiterate that and make sure that is part of the agreement.
Okay.
So that we go by quote unquote the book, as the book has been established. So
Okay.
I don't know how you feel about that, John, but I'm not saying that you've
We're not going to be president next
use
year.
that time at all. I'm just saying that especially if we go from 3 to 4, that timing could be particular, especially with all the projects that are in front of us. So that's my main concern. So.
Oh, and I think we've had some discussions about trying to have staff helping Chris on board that can kind of carry some of the, you know, some of the load while he is away. He's been decent enough to be, you know, somewhat in telephone contact. except when he's really out in the boonies.
That is true.
So I don't know that we've had a lot going on for a long time now. And we worked through his trying to stay mentally and physically healthy. So, you know, I think we need to focus on the mental and healthy side of it and not, you know, think of things that don't even, you know, are not a problem. You know, when
Well,
it's a problem,
I've said my piece and Chris has agreed to it, so.
so let's call the motion to approve the agreement as proposed. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll be meeting up with both of you to get wet signatures. John, I'll bring the contract by for you to sign that as well.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we're down to the
What did I do?
item 13, which is the second public comment. Have we pretty well outlasted everybody?
There is no public attending, so we can move on.
Okay. 14, presiding officer report. I think I kind of slipped it in earlier about my WPPA comment about round one funding was a good deal for us. Item 15, committee reports. You got anything there for us?
Well, I did attend the August 24th COG meeting. I actually mentioned it on the evening of the 24th at our monthly meeting there. That meeting primarily dealt with the new Jobs Act, and I've shared with Chris the contact from the Department of Commerce. And I don't know if you followed up with that, Chris, or not.
No, not, well, I have via email. We started communicating via email, but we haven't had an actual meeting. We can sit down and start diving into detail yet.
Okay. I do think there are some opportunities available to support through the Jobs Act. And I hope that as those processes get developed, we can stay in touch with the way those processes work, and see if there are things that can in fact benefit us.
Mhm.
And there are things, broadband is part of that, public works is part of that, charging is part of that. I still think that one of the things I mentioned was infrastructure work at the farm, and they were going to come up with some kind of ruling about that, as I remember. Because if we could get if we could update our loss system with other people's money and get some other things taken care of down there, like our water and that kind of thing with help, I think that's well worth investigating. So
Yeah, we actually spoke about expanding car charging and updating, and the loss system itself, the new septic in barn A from residential to commercial. So we've already touched on those subjects. So I'm waiting.
okay, great.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, I've enjoyed being part of the COG. I think it's educational. I'm sure that you would agree with that, John, having been part of that for as long as you were.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, those are things that, as we look into next year, probably it would be best if you rejoin the COG, John, since you're going to be at the port for a longer period of time. So just something to think about there. I also participated in the IRTPO meeting on the 24th. The primary part of that had to do with a program presented by Nikki Davis from the county, working on a safe streets and roads for all program. The port, it has almost nothing to do with the port. So there's not a lot to go into there. The other thing that they continue to work on is the Human Services Transportation Plan for the county, which deals primarily with public transportation for underserved community members. That's my report.
Thank you, David. Item 16, commissioner discussion. I got nothing left in me.
I don't really have anything either. The one question I would bring up is I thought that Commissioner Bacon was going to be a part of our
Did you think she was gonna attend, David, honestly?
well, that was just what I was notified of, so. Were we told that she was going to attend by somebody?
No, it was tentative.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Well, then I won't bring that up at the transportation meeting next time.
Don't do it. David, you want to mention the email from Blaine Oborn?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, why don't you go ahead, Chris?
Sure. So John, this morning, Blaine reached out to myself and Ryan from Island County and basically sent an email saying, hey, I hear that there's been a fallout between the agreement of the port and the county to purchase the airport. I'd like to meet with you both live. I actually called Blaine back. I did not want to respond via email until I communicated with David. And I just let him know that any further conversation should be between himself and the Port of Coupeville and not Island County at this time. And to reach out for David if he's available, and if he's not available, either you or I. That's it. So I just let him know I'm not going to answer him back on email. And so he is really, my impression is he wants to get the city of Oak Harbor to step up and to support this transaction.
Woo.
So at some point we should meet with him, or the board should meet with him, or David should meet with him.
So I'm going to respond to Blaine and tell him I can meet with him in the morning or on Friday morning.
Okay.
Is that right? Yeah, Friday, September 16th. And see what he has to say, and I'll report back. I don't know if you guys know that, but Oak Harbor just decided to purchase land along the water.
On Bayshore, yeah, that's property that when I was with EDC, I actually met with the owner of that property. Who, interestingly enough, actually worked for the city of Oak Harbor.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, and interesting guy. So he actually had drawings from somebody else that previously owned it for a massive kind of residential and retail project, all the schematics, model when I met with him. And then there was a little chunk of land that was owned by a retired Marine guy that was kind of kinking the whole deal moving forward. And so in the paper, I think they've made an offer for about $400,000 on the property. It has an assessed value of $600,000. And so who knows where that's going to go, but that would be and supposedly there's some, environmental issues or, Native American issues, maybe, who knows?
Well, anytime,
So,
yeah, there's always Native American issues.
yeah. So, it's going to be an interesting discussion to see where, if they've got all this money and it doesn't go anywhere with buying that property,
Right.
maybe they're looking for another home.
That was my thought.
So,
It's also a thought regarding the potential for a port of North Whidbey. So, so I'm going to respond to Blake, or Chris, maybe, since it was directed to you. Well, I'll respond to him.
I told him I forwarded his email to you.
Okay,
that you need for the
so
board.
I will get in touch with him, and if we can meet on Friday morning, I will do that and report back at my earliest convenience.
Perfect.
Appreciate it. Thank you, David.
Yeah, thank you.
Don, Narissa, Chris, it's been fun. I'm hungry. I want to leave.
Narissa, welcome to the club, and I hope you're here for the duration, whatever that means.
Yes.
Yeah, her first meeting and we had 2 agenda changes mid-length. She's up for the task.
All right.
She's so happy
Much,
that she didn't.
everybody.
She was so happy she did not use their Department of Correction chokehold maneuver training.
Yeah, her super hold on me, yeah.
I told her when we met that she wasn't allowed to leave.
At least for 5 then.
So
Now
let's
just,
listen.
now just
listen.
find us a commissioner for the 3rd district and we'll be home free.
Yep,
Yeah.
you got it. Job one. So I'm going to call the Port of Coupeville meeting adjourned at 12:57. It's adjourned, guys. Thank you.
Good
Okay.
job, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.